I'm Gwen Preston of Resource Maven. We are here at the Metals Investor Forum in May, and I'm joined by Craig Perry of Vizsla Copper, new-ish company. I mean, not new, been listed for a while, spun out of sister Vizsla Silver to hold the copper assets, but then acquired an asset a little while ago that you are very excited about.
Super excited about it.
So tell me about Woodjam.
Hey, Gwen. Look, it's a project that we've had our eye on for a couple of years now. Consolidated Woodjam. Bill Morton and the guys at Consolidated Woodjam, have had the property for over 20 years now. They've made a huge number of discoveries. There's six discrete known porphyry centres that they've discovered, and some of that very, very high grade mineralisation. I've sort of, I joke a little bit that if the team managed to get the property, I'd come out of semi-retirement to run the company. And so lo and behold, I went and got it. So here I am. But no, I just think look, I love copper. I've got a thesis that, the world's not going to be able to meet the demand that's coming. So we're going to see very, very high copper prices, possibly $20 a pound copper. People say you're mad for saying that, but last time around we saw copper prices go from 70 cents to $4.60.
Right. So that kind of, yeah.
And that was a 4 million tonne per annum increase in demand. This time around we're going to need a 7 million tonne increase in supply.
And it's only harder to permit mines.
Exactly.
And find good deposits and all of that stuff.
Totally. And we've had a 10-year gap in all of that work. There hasn't been much done. Absolutely. So I just simply can't see where the supply is going to come from. So we're going to have a really good sweet spot from probably the next 2 years for a decade where copper prices will be extraordinarily high. There's no substitute for copper, so we love that as well.
Yeah.
Our job at Vizsla Copper has just been put your foot on as much copper as you can.
Okay. So Consolidated Woodjam has these porphyry centers that have been defined, and there's a resource there already that's sort of a classic BC porphyry type resource. But that's not, you like the scale of opportunity there and the number of porphyry centers, but there's some other more geologic detail that you like that have to do with this alkalic porphyry concept. Why don't you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, that's right. Putting my geologist hat on. And you're right. There's a big sort of lower grade resource, and I think at the end of the day there'll be many billions of tons of that sort of 0.4% material there. But once we got into the data, and the reason we worked 2 years and assiduously to get the property was these high grade zones we saw. There seems to be a very strong structural control on the mineralisation, but some of the drill hits that really fell on deaf ears over the last 10 years since Goldfields pulled out of the project. There's some extraordinary hits, things like 150 metres at 2.5 grams gold, 0.5 copper, and that's an important point. These are predominantly gold-rich porphyries, which is that sort of classic alkalic system. Once we got onto the property, started looking at the core, what we noticed is there's these very orange cyanidic potassically altered rocks that look very much like North Parkes to us. And North Parkes, major Rio Tinto asset, I think there was about 200 million tonnes at north of 1.5% copper equivalent at North Parkes. They drilled out over 40 of these pencil-like porphyries, and within that, 3 or 4 of them were very, very high grade. Rio Tinto sold that, I think, about 6 or 7 years ago for nearly $900 million. I've visited that project a number of times, particularly back when I worked for Rio Tinto. We see the same signatures here. We did a mag survey. That's the first bit of work we've done apart from interrogating the data. And we came up with 103 discrete mag targets. Now, I've been doing porphyry exploration for 20 years, and wherever any properties I've had, you'd be very excited to have 2 or 3 mag anomalies.
Right, okay.
Here we came up with 103, and some of those are this classic donut-shaped anomalies associated with magnetite destruction in the porphyry centre. So we've got some crazy good drill targets. I'm excited to get out and test those. But first cab off for the rank for us, the low-hanging fruit is just to follow up some of these higher grade zones and then get out and test some of these other targets in the meantime.
And you're in the process of raising $6 million or so. And is that going to be sufficient for the amount of work that you want to do this season? Like, is that,
Yeah. It is. Look, we closed yesterday on $6
Oh, you did
million,
close,
so
okay.
I think it's actually significantly oversubscribed now. We were looking for 5 million. Of course, our market cap's only 17 million at the moment, so you don't want to
Go
dilute your
too crazy,
shareholders
yeah.
too much. So a carefully calculated drill program is the starting point. We're doing actually. We started a ZTEM survey here today, I believe. That will help us better define the structural controls and understand the structure around these systems, and also better allow us to rank and prioritise these other mag
Because
targets.
103 is a big number.
It is, yeah. It's a blessing and a curse, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But we'll, and I think the chances of discovery there is phenomenal. So but we'll temper that. We want to use our investors' funds wisely, and of course, as you know, with all of the Inventor Group companies, we try and put as much of our investors' dollars into drill holes. So we've got an 8,000 metre program coming up. The focus will largely be on those high grade zones and expanding those high grade zones around the known porphyry mineralisation. So it should be high impact exploration. I think very good chance of getting some pretty splashy numbers out of that first program. There might be a few geologists looking for jobs if we don't. But yeah, no, I'm thrilled with what we've got there. It's one of the better porphyry projects I've ever seen.
On a sort of capital markets arm wavy question, in planning a drill program, yes, there's the low-hanging fruit, there's the known intercepts, there's the opportunity to expand that, but then there's the market's love of new discovery, and you have all of these targets. How do you balance that? Like, obviously, you want to demonstrate, you want to do both. How do you balance that? What do you think is more important, or do you just think you have to do both?
It's a good question. Look, we struggle with that a little bit at Vizsla. Not struggle with it, but Vizsla Silvers presents the same challenge.
Absolutely,
we've got so many targets there. But when you've got a thick vein like Kapala,
and you need to just keep marching along and showing what it is, then you got to keep doing that. Yeah, it's true.
But you do want to sort of test the thesis and make sure that once you've drilled out that area, that you've got something else to go on with if it has that potential. So I think here, the bulk of that should give us budget for about 20 holes. I think we'll probably do a fence of 4 or 5 holes across one of the more prominent mag anomalies. So just looking for the balance there, really. But of course, getting really good drill results allows us to raise more money and at higher prices, and then move on to more drilling. So, we need to make sure that we get some good hits out of this first program. I think we're a very good chance of doing that.
Absolutely. And as much as the junior mining equity markets are tough, good porphyry discoveries almost always work. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, they stand out because of this copper story. So
yeah, that's right. Kodiak was a good example of that a few years ago.
Yeah.
No.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad you came out of retirement. Get out there and get it done.
Good on you. Thanks, Gwen.
Thanks, Greg.